What's up, Copy Squad? Welcome to Copy Squad conference call, June 23rd edition. Yeah, something I'm starting to recognize as a copy chief is I think it's a 4-draft game. I think by draft 4, something that we've kind of looked at as a copy team. So I'm just going to kind of share a little bit here with you guys. This is a lesson that I actually picked up recently that I'm excited to share because I thought it was a big eye-opener for me, and it was this U-shaped curve. And I got this from this book called Switch. Switch is written by the same guys that wrote Made to Stick. Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath. They wrote Switch, making change when change is hard. And there's an example of this like design company or production company or something like that. And they say every project is basically the same. Every project basically follows a U-shaped curve. You have the beginning point is optimism. And you're excited about your project and you think it's going to go great and you got all these wild ideas. It's the same thing for copy. And then you start to move into the project and it kind of gets hard. And at the bottom of this pit basically is this emotional section they call insight. This is whenever you start to learn lessons, get insight, and start to actually get through the practical aspects of the project that you're operating on. Then eventually you work through the insight period, which is basically just spinning your wheels and nothing seems to work that you're writing or working on. And then you get to this other side called confidence. That's when you're like, we did it. I'm the best copywriter on the planet. I can do this all day. I did this 10 times before breakfast, and what we have as a team is I'm sitting as a copy chief. Like I just listed the promos that we're actively working on. That's just like my full-time writers. It doesn't count the freelancers who aren't on this call. So I'm seeing this pattern 10 times. All right. And I'm starting to realize that this looks like optimism. Yeah, this project rocks. My guru is the man. He's going to be so helpful and we're going to have such a great time and yada, yada, yada. That kind of lasts until about draft 3. And I think draft 4, so it's like draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, and then draft 4 is probably about the bottom of the pit where the first draft I'm like, here, let me steer you a little bit better. Like your idea is a little bit weak here. And they're like, okay, cool. Nothing really substantial yet. Draft 2, you come back to me and you've written like almost a whole promo and you're like, hey, I'm really excited about this promo. And I say, well, it sucks. And most of it's wrong. So then it's like, I was so excited about this. And then you slip a little bit more into what they call insight, right? I'm giving you insight. It doesn't feel like insight. And then at draft 3, you come back and say, well, what about this one? And then I go, well, you're still off base, but I think we can fix it. Draft 2, I thought was money. And now I'm on draft 3 and it's still not right. Who knows what draft 4 is going to bring? So then we get through draft 4. All right. Now you're feeling just squeamish about talking to me and you don't. You ignore me on Slack. You take 2 weeks to send me a next draft. And then I get draft 5 and I'm like, hey man, this almost looks like a good promo. And now you're elated and you're like, yeah, full steam ahead. Let's do another one. And now all of a sudden you send me the next draft 6, like an hour later, like ripping and ready to go. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think we can sell this. I think we have something here that will generate revenue for this company and make you some killer royalties. But we still have to clean it up. And that's where we get to about draft 7. Draft 7, we tidy it up. We polish that offer section. We run it past the guru. And draft 8, we're going to run it past the guru, get his sign off, make sure we color it with the way that he likes to speak. And at the end of that, you're like, we're going to make $1 million. And then it's just like sinkers. You just hope it doesn't bomb, right? And so far we've had really good luck with just having a lot of good iterative processes that our promos don't bomb. But I like this. This was something I kind of picked up over the last 2 weeks since we last talked. And I thought I'd share this with the Copy Squad because I feel like this is something that everybody kind of is going to have to deal with. There's a book called The Dip by Seth Godin. He talks about the dip and he has like his own little curve about it. And I think really the U is almost a better sort of illustration of what it is that we actually deal with as copywriters. And your job as a copywriter, this is the entire job. This is your job description, the U. Every time you step up to the plate, it's going to be another U. With experience, your U can look less like this and more like this, but it's still going to be a U shape when you're down here. And again, like you can try to make it more and more shallow by getting more iterations, more reps, more at bats, more attempts at swinging the bat and trying new promos, new projects, new ideas. So I hope that, does that,
Wow, you ever watched that presentation by Mike Palmer at AWAI?
no.
Where he talks about a similar thing, about it, kind of like this graph that he has, and how he watches copywriters go through this like process of, usually this is where everybody dips off and never comes back if they can't walk through this.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting. You should watch it. I'll send you a link if you want to.
That's a good way to put it too. The guys who are going to fall off, they're going to fall off right here. They won't get to that draft 5 when they start to get the upswing. And that's what I'm saying. Like when you get that upswing and draft 5 works out for you, and then you're going to be coming back to me excited for draft 6 and 7. And then draft 8, you're like, yes, we're going to be millionaires. We're going to be rich. It's going to be crazy. What am I going to do with all this money I'm going to have tomorrow?
Hey, I got to comment on this too. So One of the big realizations I had in working with you is, with each draft, like we go through the first iteration, and you have, that first iteration, there's always like 1,000 comments, and you can't actually act on all of those comments and all of those suggestions. But in that, you kind of find like the big key element that needs to change for the next draft. And so to kind of circle back, the big aha moment I had in working with you through all this is the goal for going from one draft to the next isn't like perfection. Like, hey, I locked down all of the comments and suggestions. I locked them all down. No, the goal instead is just to pound through each one of those drafts, because you got to get through 3 to 4 before we actually start getting anywhere. So like the goal is like, let's just get through those as fast as we possibly can, because we have to get to that 4th one before we actually get anywhere.
Each time that I think that you go through this, you get a little bit better, a little bit more confident, a little bit wiser, one thing, that I've struggled with is just kind of like connecting the dots and putting together this massive idea into this succinct sales letter. It's like there's so many different variables and you're just juggling it through there. So I'm excited to like work through that process and kind of get better at like the idea piece and how to hammer that down. But I think it's spot on when it comes to reps, doing it in repetitions, just like anything else. You want to get good at shooting free throws, shoot 500 a day. You want to get good at doing copy, hammer out sales letters every day, read it, write it, like, live it, and we'll eventually get.
I can relate this to one thing that I was actually practicing before Corona. I was getting into rock climbing, and there's this version of rock climbing called bouldering. And bouldering are these walls where you don't have ropes. They go about 15 feet high. It's high enough to be scary as shit when you're at the top. So the first couple times I would go up a bouldering wall, I would do it quite timid, just scared to death of falling, until I fell a couple times. And I think that's kind of exactly what it is with anything. When you get to the other side, you realize that the worst case scenario, like, you're going to get through this. It's not a big deal. And that is what, in a sense, confidence is. You just have, you're not arrogant, but you're just confident. You just know at a logical level, this just sucks because it sucks. It doesn't mean I'm a terrible copywriter. I don't take it personally that I'm spinning my wheels. Doesn't mean I'm an idiot. Doesn't mean I don't know how to write. Doesn't mean this or that. I know that this is part of it, and that I have seen the other side of this so many times now, right? That I am aware that I will pull through. And that goes back to this whole thing about people who slip out the dip, like they get down here and they never recover. It's because they never got to the other side enough times to realize that you will get to the other side. Just get that promo to the finish line.
Learning rock climb was one of the most humbling experiences of my whole life.
Learn to rock climb?
Yeah. Like less than a year ago, I was climbing like 3 days a week, and just going through that and watching like chicks dance up the wall, and I can't even make the first move in like a crux or anything. Like, most humbling experience of my whole life.
I've seen fat guys get up better than me with better technique. I've seen 7-year-old kids from the junior league just fly up the wall. And I love rock climbing because it reminds me so much of copy, and that it's about technique and getting the reps. So I kind of relate rock climbing, any sporting thing where you have to utilize and master technique. It's such an analogous way to look at copy. All right, cool. So that's my big sensei lesson for this call. Peace out, Copy Squad. you.